This IndyCar 2025 Championship Odds edition of the NASCAR Gambling Podcast here on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Sign up with our promo code RACESGPN to get a 50% deposit bonus of up to $1,000. We're also brought to you by Rhythm, the leader in data-driven picks and props. Get your 7-day free trial today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITH.
Drivers, start your engine!
Strap in and pull those belts up tight as the Sports Gambling Podcast Network presents the NASCAR Gambling Podcast.
I'll wreck my mom to win a championship. I'll wreck your mom to win a championship.
With all the news and the best bets for your NASCAR weekend.
It refrains me from not beating the out of you right now because you ask me stupid questions. But since I'm on probation, I suppose that's improper to say as well. If you could talk about racing things, we could talk about racing things.
Now, here are your hosts, Rod Villagomez and Cody Zeeb.
Welcome in to another episode of the NASCAR Gambling Podcast here on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. He's Cody Zeeb. I'm Rod Villagomez. I hope everybody out there had a fantastic holiday week and that you had everything that you desired, food-wise, family-wise, or no family-wise, or whatever, that you had the holiday season that you wished. And, of course, for those of you who are still celebrating, happy holidays to those of you out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Stuff going on all through the week. I know we got family stuff next week to celebrate Christmas as well. So hope everybody had or is having / does have a good holiday.
Indeed. Checking in with the chat already. Leon's Automotive saying, woohoo, made a live stream. Howdy, Cody and Rod. I'm gonna forgive the typo. Wizards Dungeon, aka Adrian over there on Twitter.
Nice.
Yeah, we definitely love interacting with you.
Yes.
Having a great time doing that.
Yeah, and says have a happy Christmas and a merry off season, which of course the famous Chase Elliott line from a few years ago to Kevin Harvick after their spat a couple seasons ago. But yeah, happy to have you and glad you made a live stream. Make sure subscribe to the YouTube channel, click that little bell, and you as well can join live when we are.
What a busy time for sports. There is so much going on right now. And you know, I know that we're a NASCAR show, but you know, listen, we love all sports, and just when you're paying attention to everything at once, it's, you know, the off season feels like forever, but there's football, handball.
What happened today, Rob?
What did happen today, Cody? Oh, did they win? I didn't.
U.S. Navy, baby. They beat SEC. Yes. So you know what this means, Rod? Navy, of course, they beat Army a couple weeks ago. You remember. But they beat Oklahoma today, who's in the SEC, who beat Alabama, which means that they beat Army, who should have been in the playoffs. They beat Oklahoma, who beat Alabama, who should have been in the playoffs, which means Navy got snubbed from the playoffs. Am I doing this right? I think this is how you do it in college football. So Navy should have been in the playoffs, Rob. They got robbed. They are the 2025 national champions in my book.
Well, okay, but let me counter that with no. They shouldn't. Like, good on you. And here's what I don't understand. Okay, Army, better record, better everything, right? Yeah, Navy beat them, but like ranked team gets Louisiana in the Shreveport special. Like what the hell is that? What kind of reward for an 11-2 season is a freaking Louisiana
for a
bowl?
Team that, yeah, like, I mean, there was an argument to be made that they should potentially have been in the college football playoff. Of course, you know, 11-1 when bowl things were decided. They lost to Navy, you know, after that. But yeah, it's unfortunate that that's where they ended up and ended with an opponent. It's like, come on.
Yeah, I mean, well, whatever. I'll take the free win, whatever. But I knew they were even supposed to play Memphis, and Memphis didn't even have a team because they all entered the portal. So that's an entirely different argument for an entirely different day. But if
they were scared of Army, Rod. See,
yeah, whatever. I would be too. But if you want to find out more about college football and all of the stuff that's going on, you can download the SGPN app, because guess what? There is a show for that. If you love it, there's a show for it on the app. All of our picks, all of our podcasts, all in one place. And the best thing of all, and especially in this time of season when your pockets are drained from all of the Christmas presents that you've bought for everybody, but not yourself, it's free. So make this the Christmas present to yourself that you can leave on your phone and easily type. Just type in SGPN in the App Store and boom, it's right there. Today, Cody, I know there's plenty of NASCAR stuff going on. However, not so much, right? The stockings were hung and everybody's kind of still in their kerchiefs. So we get to talk IndyCar odds.
There's still plenty of NASCAR stuff to talk about. And spoiler alert, Rod, if you are listening to the live show, like we've got multiple people doing, we're going to be live right after this show with some more NASCAR talk. But yeah, talking IndyCar today. Preston checked in, Rod, said it's a shame the odds are so short. But Alex Palou, good night. Good night, Preston. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate it. He is a heavy favorite, which we're going to get into. And actually, there's some interesting conversations to be had there. Ricardo checking in as well. I've moved on to wild non-hitting football parlays because of no racing. He is stuck in the parlay portal, he says. I mentioned where no one wins. I've got good news for you. So I was looking end of the month, we start to send in our like budget proposals and stuff for the next month as far as what articles we'd like to write and whatnot to the editors and all that. A little behind the scenes for you, Rod. And I was looking and I go, holy shit, in January, I'm going to have to write an article for a race because the Coliseum, or not, God, why do I keep saying the Coliseum? The Clash, the Clash of Bowman Gray, Rod, is February 2nd, which means it's just over a month away. We are getting so freaking close to racing being back. It's hardly even felt like the off season, which is great.
Well, and it is. And again, because look, Ricardo, there is a site. It's in my link. If you go to Twitter, look up RJ Villagomez. There's a link in that bio that'll take you to a site that you can actually get other sports. You want some handball action? We got handball. You got some FCS action. There's some darts action in there. And a lot of those have been kind of hitting. So if you want to get in deep outside of this parlay portal, I've got a site for you, but we'll talk about later on. But like I said, today we are here to talk about the Indy Championship. Let's see. Adrian saying Colton Herta for championship needs that super license points for Andretti. F1 Cadillac GM needs an American soldier to lead the troops.
That's an interesting. Spoiler alert. I do like Herta, but that's an interesting twist on it. Get him those super license points and win the championship and then waltz into F1 the following season with the American team. Interesting thought there.
Indeed. Colton Herta, the runner-up last year to Alex Palou, who won the championship almost, I don't want to say going away, but it was a healthy.
It was going away.
Yeah, it was a healthy gap between.
Some might call him Alex Verstappen, Rod.
Yeah, you want to talk about 2 wins, 3 poles, 13 top 5s rather, 13 top 10s. He is, of course, as we talked about just a second ago, the favorite to win at plus 200. So I mean, you're getting Max Verstappen-esque type odds here, where they're short for a season-long champion.
Yeah, so plus 200 always for a season-long bet makes you pause and you're like, boy, it's pretty short delay, especially this far in advance, right? And IndyCar season ends sooner than NASCAR does. It ends in September, I think. So you don't have to wait as long, but plus 200 is like, oof. To Preston's point, it's a shame the odds are so short, but Alex Palou, good night. If that's how you feel, then, go back and think if the last couple seasons you could have had an opportunity to take Verstappen at plus 200, then you might be thinking, okay, this could be your opportunity to do it. So Palou's won the last 2 titles in a row. He's got 3 championships now. But it's been interesting. You mentioned his win total from last year, Rod. And how many wins did he have?
2.
Yeah, he only had 2 wins. Now, of course, IndyCar does it the old school NASCAR way where they count points throughout the entire season and build up. And he's been so consistent that really nobody was able to challenge him for the most part. there were some opportunities, right? And even the previous season back in 22 or 23 rather, when he won it, there were challengers. So I definitely don't think that it is Alex Palou, that's it, good night, he's going to kill everyone, because that's not really been the case. He's obviously outpointed everyone, but only 2 wins over the entire season is definitely not the Max Verstappen style of ass kicking. And for me, at 2-1, it's just not worth it at that price. Now, obviously, he's the favorite for a reason. He's won the last 2. If he goes out and wins again, and if you're an IndyCar person tuning into this, you haven't listened to us before, oh, these guys don't think Alex Palou is going to win. Like, that's not the case, right? He should win. He's the favorite to win. He's done it previously, but betting it at only 2-1 odds, that's where the question is, does it make it worth it? Personally, I don't think that it does.
And again, we've had this discussion several times over on the NASCAR side of it. And if you are brand new and you're listening because you stumbled onto the keyword IndyCar and you're like, oh, what are these guys doing talking IndyCar because they're NASCAR guys? Look, we love all racing, right? We used to have an F1 gambling podcast show where we talked F1 as well. So, we take all comers. But this is where you talk about the threshold of where you even feel comfortable laying a full season. And we've talked about before, especially on like win totals where, you're at -120, -130. Like, this is at least a plus money proposition for you to double up on your money. So, if you're wanting to sit on a pretty decent investment, right, and you think that Alex Palou is going to win, and listen, that's not even just to say how hard it is to win 3 of these things in a row, right? Let alone another couple. So it's tough to win 1. It's tough to win 2 back to back. It's even harder to triple up and win 3. Because to your point, there's guys, Cody, that have more wins. There's 3 folks, in fact, that have more wins than Alex Palou did last season, and they're all sitting from 3rd to 5th. And any one of these guys could get another couple of top 10 finishes, top 5 finishes, and sour this for Alex Palou. But I mean, really, it's the consistency. Somebody I saw it here. There it is. He's saying consistent, not as much dominant for Adrian, and that's right. I mean, it's how we talked about guys in the past at NASCAR that will top 10 you to death, right? They're the guys that are consistently at Matt Kenseth. We talked about that, where he just are top 10 you to death and won it all. So that's a lot more likely in this IndyCar. So for me, the difference between a couple of top 5s here is probably closer than it would be in an F1 or in a NASCAR, where we're talking the difference between 1 or 2 top 5s making the championship difference.
Yeah, and he did have 5 wins 2 seasons ago, so he can win a lot of races and walk away with the title. Again, it's not that can't happen. It's just that it's not the Max Verstappen type of he's winning 23 races in a season. Nobody can challenge him. And when you look at IndyCar, at the top, you've got Ganassi, which he races for, but you've also got Team Penske, which is, it's much like Hendrick and JGR sort of, I guess, at the top of NASCAR, where you kind of think of those as the best 2 teams, and then Penske wins all the titles. But those are the kind of the 2 best teams, the best drivers. In IndyCar, you've got that as well, and it's not like F1 has been the last couple seasons. Obviously, we've talked lately about that tide has shifted now. But I definitely don't think that it's just a lock. Alex Palou's it. Don't even bother watching the season, because I don't think that that's the case. Favorite for a reason, yes. Good bet at 2-1. I don't think so. But again, if you're a more seasoned IndyCar person and you believe that Palou's just going to run away with it, well, at 2-1, you could look back if he does just run away with it and be like, well, that's a pretty good number I got there.
I will say that this is a number that will get worse as the season progresses and he gets better. So this will be the highest that you can invest in him, because even he's going to, well, I mean, look, when he jumps out and wins a couple of races, then that's going to be,
it could, I don't know. It'll be interesting, because there's some possibility that he's got a little slump to start but that happening, it just probably is so unlikely that you probably wouldn't see a better number. If he did struggle, you probably would get a better number, but I agree that I wouldn't bank on getting much of an opportunity to see a much better number, because even if he does start slow, the books are still going to realize how good he is, how he could quickly rebound from it. So, I agree with you there.
Good. Well, then we will continue to talk down the rest of this list in just a second, but I want to take this opportunity to tell you about Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Pick'em has one of the biggest menus for all of sports. You can win up to 100x with Underdog streaks. Underdog is always making it easier to win with profit boosts and gimme pick'ems. There's NFL, there's college football, there's college basketball, there's MMA, there's NBA, there's NASCAR, there's Formula One, and so much more. Plus, you can use specials a boost on all of your Flicks entries. This is the weekend. Aaron Rodgers going for his 500th career touchdown pass. If you do not hurry up to Underdog and get the higher than a half of a receiving touchdown for Davante Adams, I don't know what you are doing. That is going to happen. You got to think that he's going to try to get Davante Adams to catch that 500th ball. There's no one else on the field. In fact, Davante Adams, there's a target number on there. I would take the higher than, even up to 100 targets for Davante Adams, because that boy's going to get peppered with a ton of targets this weekend to try to get that touchdown and make that record for Aaron Rodgers. So sign up with our promo code RACESGPN to claim your special pick and first-time deposit offer up to $1,000 in bonus cash. It's UnderdogFantasy.com, promo code RACESGPN. That's going to be a hell of a matchup. I know, like I said, it's going to be. And Aaron Rodgers to Davante Adams, like every single pass. Poor guy. No one else on the field is going to get looks.
Oh, it's so hard to have any faith in Aaron Rodgers and the Jets, Rod.
Oh, I hate it, but you got to figure that they're going to score at least one touchdown, right? And it's going to have to be to Davante Adams. So
probably
like that. All right, so let's continue down the odds sheet here. Looking at Scott McLaughlin, thirsty threes in the house. Look, man, this guy, you know, he's capable of winning. He did it last year, or a couple of years ago, rather, in Birmingham. He's done it before in Birmingham again last year. So, and then in Iowa again, picked up that win in Milwaukee again. He's one of those guys that we just talked about, sitting third on the list for the championship last year with 3 wins. He had 5 poles, 8 top 5s, 12 top 10s. He led 637 laps, Cody. That's about 400 more almost than Alex Palou led in the season. So, I mean, you talk about a guy that honestly, he's going to make a name for himself, but how much do you think he's going to be a championship contender next year?
Yeah, I think that he probably is, rightfully so, right here next. Now, you know, you got him at 3-1 when Palou's at 2-1. You put them side by side, and it's hard not to pick Palou because Palou does have 3 titles to his name. McLaughlin hasn't won one yet, but he's relatively young driver in IndyCar, only a couple of seasons in. He's continued to get better and better as we've gone. He actually won the opening race last season, but then there was the whole deal where they were maybe manipulating the software. How much did that help him win the race? Maybe, maybe not, but of course that win was stripped from him after that. So, you know, another win you could maybe sort of chalk to his name there, and a lot of points, obviously, to start the season out that they lost. But he's been good on ovals. You mentioned his win there at Iowa, I believe it was. So that is helpful as well. Man, it just at only 3-1. I am a huge Scotty Mack fan. I love the guy. I think he's great. I think he's a very good driver, and I think that he's going to win the championship at some point. I think he definitely could this year, but 3-1 when Palou's 2-1. Again, it's just from a betting aspect. I don't think that the bet makes a lot of sense.
And honestly, and Adrian coming in making another point too. Penske can be serious throughout with Newgarden, Scotty Mack will power. Double points in Indy could pan out to be crucial to a championship threat. But it just seems to me that for the 3 wins that Scotty Mack did have, there seemed to be quite a few hiccups for that team. When they ran well, right? But then when they didn't, it just felt like the wheels sometimes almost legitimately fell off. And honestly, 8 top 5s, I know when we're talking about Palou having 13, 8 doesn't seem like that big of a gap, but you know, for a driver that is contending for a championship, it feels like he should be up there a little more than, and let's put this in perspective too, Cody, because there's NASCAR fans that don't necessarily know that IndyCar is only 17 races. So it's not as if we've got 30 some odd races to, and we're saying only 10 top 5s. I mean, this is still a really good ratio of top 5s, but as it's proven, you know, you need a couple more. You need 4 more, at least 3 or 4 more, 5 more to put yourself in the championship contention, even if you pulled out 3 wins. So to Leon's point earlier about being consistent, that's how you be consistent. I mean, and I know it sounds bad to say 8 top 5s is not consistent in a 17 race season, but kind of not enough.
Yeah, and then too, another sort of NASCAR comparison. Scotty Mack came from supercars, just like SVG did. Of course, we've seen him transition into NASCAR now. Scotty Mack won 3 titles in a row, actually 2018 through 2020, over for supercars. That's when he transitioned into Indy, and it's been a steady progression throughout his career of continuing to climb. 2 seasons ago, actually, so going back to 2 seasons ago, was a great IndyCar championship race. Going into the final race, I believe it was 5 different drivers that had mathematical eligibility to still win the race. Scotty Mack being one of those. Of course, Palou came out on top, but that's how close this has been before. And to Adrian's point here as well, just a reminder, or if you didn't know, letting you know, the Indianapolis 500 is worth double points, which I think is something NASCAR should consider for Daytona. But that's another conversation, Rod. But that makes that race already such a big race, such a huge thing, worth even more, because if you have a good day, you score double the points. If you have a bad day, other people are scoring double the points that you're not scoring. Penske has been very good there. Traditionally, it had been a long time since they won until the last couple of years. Joseph Newgarden's won the last 2 in a row here, but Scotty Mack has, also been very good in that race. So, this is another one of he should be a contender. You expect him to be there throughout the season, but at only 3-1, really hard to bet it at this price.
And it is frustrating because, like you said, with Palou being 2-1, and it's way more of a sure thing that he could get it done versus Scotty Mack, who is a bigger gamble. The number does not. I mean, I know he was 3rd place, but it 3rd place between these guys was not, like a really. It was 544 for Alex Palou, who had the points lead there, and Scotty Mack came in at 505. Right in between them was Colton Herta. We'll talk about them in a second, or him in a second, at 513. So I mean, there's almost 40 points difference between them, and this is what I'm saying. It's the difference between a couple more top 5s for Scotty Mack. So now if he pulls that together, okay, we're talking. But I think this is an instance where, unlike Palou, you can wait on Scotty Mack to maybe have a couple of races where he tries to get his feet wet in the beginning of the season. Maybe he'll win one, and then he'll go on a little bit of a slump, and then you can grab a better number than 3-1. So I say wait on Scotty Mack if you really, wait until he has a couple of bad races, and then go ahead and pounce on him as a higher number.
Yeah, I don't mind that strategy at all, because just at this number, he's very, very hard to bet on, and I'm like, I just can't pull the trigger at this number.
Yeah, it's definitely tough to get yourself to do that. So, all right. Well, then, we'll dig into more of these, but I want to go commercial free for the rest of them. So let us do this, and I'll come back and talk to you about more of these drivers. But I want to tell you first about mybookie.ag. We're brought to you by mybookie.ag. MyBookie has been running on SGPN for years. You can check out their new and improved website, which, by the way, looks great on the mobile phone that you got in your hands right now. Put it down. You're listening to us. Just kidding. Plus, props for every game and a live dealer casino. I love me some blackjack, some baccarat, some poker, all that good stuff. You can find it there. You even have new early cash out options. Looking at MyBookie for this NFL weekend coming up. Look, the Dolphins and the Bills are not there. See, this is I every time I click on this, a lot of times it just pops up with week 1, and I'm trying to scramble for it. So, all right, let's look at some of these NCAA scores and try to pick something from that. All right, well, guess what? I'm like Howard Stern on his ad. I don't know what to tell you right now, but you can head over to mybookie.ag, promo code SGPN for a 100% deposit match up to $1,000 plus a $10 casino chip. That's mybookie.ag, promo code SGPN. SGPN's proud partner, Rhythm, is the #1 AI-powered sports betting platform that helps provide bettors of all levels the ability to build custom predictive betting models in seconds and get predictions for betting on money lines, spreads, totals, and props. Build your own model, copy one of the top-performing models from the leaderboard, or have Rhythm build a model for you. Now, you can track props in the Rhythm app as well. NFL picks, NFL props, college football, college basketball, NBA. Rhythm has it all. Trying to build myself a model for Devontae Adams because I know he's going to score a touchdown, but I don't know how many yards he's going to get. My brain, just like Cody, leans toward the under, even though he's going to be peppered with targets. However, I want Rhythm to back me up on that so I can go bet it safely. Claim your 7-day free trial today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM.
Rod, mybookie.ag, promo code SGPN, Indianapolis Colts -7.5, -110 over the New York Giants.
Ooh, yes.
I cannot express to you how fucking horrible this Giants team is. I get it. It's Indianapolis. It's Anthony Richard, or is it? It might be Joe Flacco, in which case you better get those numbers soon. Because if it's Joe Flacco, there's no way in hell they don't cover that spread. Even if it's Anthony Richardson, as scary as that can be, the Giants are fucking horrible. So just bet on the Colts.
Yeah, they are bad. So, all right. Love that. Like I said, I do feel like sometimes Howard Stern, where I've got tabs open that I need to do. And if they don't cooperate and I'm over here doing this read, I'm like, oh, well, I can't really do much.
So many times you click on a tab and then it like reloads the page and you lose the spot you were at. And you're like, fuck.
Yeah.
Technology. And I don't even do the ad reads.
It's your best friend until it's not. So,
yes.
All right, let's move on down the road and talk about Joseph Newgarden, who is at 5-1. Joseph Newgarden actually was 8th overall in the championship standing with 401 points. So much respect on him, Cody. He did pick up 2 wins. We know that he is an oval terror, right? But he had 2 poles on the season, 7 top 5s, 8 top 10s. He only led 137 laps. Why, oh, why is he above other names that we'll talk about here in a second? But why is he at 5-1? It's a lot of respect shown to Joseph Newgarden.
So, yeah, plus 550, actually, if you go over to the Caesars, Rod, so you can get him there. This is actually the first guy that we get to that I am absolutely in love with. Even at plus 550, Rod, Joseph Newgarden is really, really fucking good. And obviously, so is Alex Palou and Scott McLaughlin again. But you're getting you're getting more than twice the number, almost 3 times the number you're getting on Palou at Newgarden, even at just plus 550. But he's been in the title mix for multiple seasons. Last year, things were a little rough, right, and didn't quite go his way. But he was really close a couple of seasons ago to get there, and he's been just a strong contender year in and year out for the most part. He's with Team Penske, of course. They're the other. Really, Penske is the more powerhouse team, in my opinion. Palou obviously kind of tips the scales, and Dixon we'll talk about in a minute, but they've got 3 guys all up here in the top, 5 in odds for the championship. Penske does. So, but that's a team he races for. Of course, he's won 2 consecutive Indianapolis 500s. He's dominated the ovals. There's more ovals now than the same amount as last season, I believe, but more than there had been previously. That plays into his favor. Some other guys are definitely picking up the slack there on the oval part, but Newgarden is the guy when it comes to ovals. That's a big help for him. So yeah, he's a guy that I am really in love with, and actually, he is the first guy that I placed a championship bet on this season, Rob.
And for really good reason. I had posed the question of why, Cody, because I wanted you to go on that deep explanation, but I already knew the reason. 2017, he had 4 wins. He ended up winning that championship. And then in 2018, he had 3 wins and finished 5th. 4 wins in 2019, ends up winning that one. Runner-up in 3 consecutive seasons in 2020. He had 4 wins in 2021. He had 2 wins in 2022. He had 5 wins and finished 2nd in that season. And then, like we said, last season was only 2 wins, a down season for him. But before that, in
by the way, last year I said earlier that McLaughlin won that for opening race. He did not. It was Newgarden. McLaughlin, I think, finished 2nd to Newgarden, but they were both stripped of their spot because it was the whole Team Penske as a whole that was manipulating the data.
Yeah, no, and so a two-time champion of the entire series, 2 Indy 500 wins. He's got 85 top 5s in his career, 58 top 3s. Man, 31 race wins. Yeah, this guy is a serious threat to win each and every time. So 5-1 seems like a pretty decent number for him. A lot of respect.
And to Adrian's point, scary thing is he's equally as good on road courses as well. With his success. So yeah, we talk about him being an oval guy, but it's not like he shows up at the road courses and he's not that good. Like, he's actually extremely good at them as well. So to me, Rod, it feels like if you're going to have a Verstappen type of performance by a driver this season that just kind of dominates. It's either Alex Palou, who of course is at the top of the board, or it's Joseph Newgarden, in my opinion. I think that these are the two drivers that can really just go out and could be so far and above everyone else if they hit everything just right and things fall into place that they could run away with it and not look back. I think if anybody else wins the title, which I think other people can, it's going to be a closer race. But if it's a blowout, I think it's a blowout by Palou or a blowout by Newgarden. And I think getting Newgarden, and again, two-time champion, he's done it before. He didn't switch teams. He's not super old. Like, he hasn't just fallen off the cliff. There's nothing that signals like, oh, it's time to be cautious on him, right? He's had some slip-ups the last couple seasons, some minor stuff they got to work out. But if they work it out, watch out, because he is very, very dangerous. So I love Newgarden at plus 550.
Yeah, I do too. Like I said, a lot of respect put on him, and for good reason as well. All right, let's continue to move down the list. We got Scotty Dixon, 5-1, along with Joseph Newgarden. Scotty Dixon finishing 6th in the overall standings last season with 456 points. He had 2 wins on the season, 8 top 5s, 11 top 10s. Again, he feels a lot, Cody, like Scott McLaughlin, in that when he's on, and the dude can win some races, right? He won the Indy GP in 2023. He's won several other races on top of that. Obviously, one of the more consistent drivers in the entire world right now. 3 wins in 2023, 2 wins in 2021, 1 in 2022, 1 in 2021, 4 in 2020. And, he's obviously been champion more times than I have.
He's trying to get into that Dale Earnhardt, Richard Petty, Jimmy Johnson conversation with 7. But yeah, I mean, Scott Dixon, the Iceman, they call him. He's got 363 career starts in IndyCar, 22 seasons. He is 44 years old. So, that's where you can start having the age conversation. I was hoping that he would be a little bit of a bigger number. So again, you're stacking him up at the same price as Newgarden. I'm going to take Newgarden, but Dixon is it is incredible. And he's been one of our favorite guys, when we've had the opportunity to talk IndyCar, and I've written a lot of IndyCar betting articles for sportsgamblingpodcast.com as well. Dixon is a guy that I constantly go to a lot because, we talk about guys that you can bet top 3s or top 5s all the time. In NASCAR, we get top 10s. You don't really get those in IndyCar, but top 3s, top 5s. He's a guy that you can consistently hit those bets on because that's what he is. Like, he is very, very consistent. Probably not going to go out and win 5-6 races anymore like he has in the past, but to the point of a season-long championship and being consistent, he's a guy that can be consistent, will be consistent, and he's always going to be hanging around. He's going to be in the conversation at the end of the day. It's not going to be in dominating fashion, most likely. Him and Joey Logano, best friends as far as fuel tanks go, Rod. Those are the only 2 guys that can make fuel last as long as they do. Dixon has won some incredible fuel mileage races, and it is actually like, we joke about that with him and Logano, but their veteran ability to be able to do that, it speaks for something for sure. But that team's not afraid to roll the dice and gamble, leave him out on strategy calls, and they've won a ton of races over the last couple seasons doing so. So you got to like that. Only 5-1. I'm not going to bet on it. But again, he's getting respect that he deserves and should be one of the more favorites in this series.
Yeah, I agree with you on that instance as well. I mean, his career has just been phenomenal, right? 2 championships, or sorry, 6 champions. I'm looking at a different guy. See, this is what happens when you start clicking on random links. But no, for Scott Dixon, wins last year at Long Beach. He won at Detroit. So picking up a couple of big wins there. Adrian saying Scott Dixon is a good play for his consistent nature throughout the season to jump in and grab a few dubs. But danger avoidance makes him a serious consideration for the championship. Yeah. I mean, he's done it several times.
That's the thing, is he will just consistency the hell out of you. And that's what's going to keep him in the conversation. And look, he's won 6 titles because he's obviously pretty fucking good. And to the point I made with Newgarden, he's not changed teams. He's not on a different team. Like, he's still on a Ganassi team. That's who Alex Palou races for. Alex Palou's won the last couple of titles. So it's still very much there. He is obviously closer to that age cliff where you maybe start to worry a bit, but you just haven't really seen him completely fall off of that. So I wouldn't be too worried about that. It's just, again, the other options you can get around this area, I would take Newgarden over him, but I think it's well-deserved for where he's at.
Indeed. All right, let's continue down the list. Let's talk about Will Power, rather, at 7-1. Will Power, the two-time champion, the 2018 Indianapolis 500 winner. Back at Penske, we talked about him being dominant with his teammates as well in that Verizon Chevy. But yeah, I mean, look, Will Power, like I said, 2 championships. He's got 105 top threes, 136 top 5 in his season. He was 4th place in the standings overall last year with 498 points, 3 wins, 7 top 5s, 11 top 10s. I mean, the Aussie is definitely a threat. So at 7-1, I feel like this is really good value for a guy that could run for a 3rd championship.
Yeah, you're definitely getting a good price here. And again, it's a lot of the same stuff we just talked about with Dixon. Power is very similar in the fact that he is very consistent. And his qualifying ability, he's first actually all time in pole awards for IndyCar. He's got 70 in his career of 302 races, which is pretty incredible. But he's won the Indy 500 before. His oval game is pretty strong, as we mentioned, with all the Penske cars. So yeah, he's not not overly flashy, and probably not going to win you your 5-6 races like a Palou and Newgarden could, and maybe even a Scotty Mack, but he's going to be consistent. He's going to be in the conversation at the end of the day. At 7-1, not a guy I'm racing to the window to bet, but another guy that at this number, you definitely have to stop and consider him.
Yeah, I would feel good about this because, again, at 7-1, this is another number. If he does come out and have good finishes, you may not see it. And if he's at the top of the list, you may see him closer to 7. I mean, it's a 5 or 4 in that range right there. So I like that. All right, let's move on to Pato O'Ward. Pato O'Ward finishing 5th last year with 460 points, 3 race wins. Another one of these guys at 3 race wins, right? 6 top 5, 10 top 10s, coming in now at 8-1 to win the championship. I mean, this is a fun story to talk about because everywhere you go, you could talk about Pato O'Ward, but last couple seasons, he had 3 race wins, but again, it just never feels like you're talking about him in all seriousness to win a championship. You're talking about him to win races because he can do that, but you're not really talking about him for a championship run.
Yeah, and so this is the first non-Penske, non-Ganassi guy we stumble across, right? So worth pointing out, right? He's with Arrow McLaren. So it shows, and the odds sort of reflect it, that Penske and Ganassi have the pretty strong advantage over everyone else. Now, that's not saying that other guys can't win it. But yeah, Pato is sort of just the quiet guy, I guess, that doesn't get as much of the glitz and glam, but still shows up and performs well. So obviously, you mentioned he was 5th in the standings last season. Even had a 3rd place finish all the way back in 2021 even. So he's had some good finishes over the years. Just not a guy that screams off the board to me. Again, in this number range is another guy that we're going to talk about next. That's where I really want to sort of jump again. But yeah, O'Ward is another guy that is going to be in the conversation throughout the season, going to have his chances. Obviously racked up some wins last year, and could definitely do so again this season.
But again, you have to get more consistent inside of the top 5, inside of the top 3 to make a threat, because your 3 wins alone, while they're flashy and they're fun, aren't enough to get it done. You got to get into that top 5 more consistently, and that's the step we need to see Pato make before I start to really consider him for an actual legitimate championship run.
And Adrian pointing out too, his F1 presence. He is the reserve driver for McLaren in the F1 series. So, and he's been through the whole, which a lot of these guys have, but has climbed the ladder through formula stuff before coming over to IndyCar. He definitely, the ceiling, I would say, I think that's a good way to put it, right? He's got a high ceiling, because I don't think we've gotten the full look at what he potentially could be. So, if you're a McLaren fan, I know we've got some guys out there. Preston, I know you stopped listening a long time ago when you just bet on Palou to win, but McLaren, right? If you're looking for a McLaren guy, plus 850, yeah, you definitely could make a pretty strong case for him.
I concur. All right, let's move on to what I consider to be probably the last guy in serious consideration, and the books too, because the gap between Colton Herta and Kyle Kirkwood is kind of considerable. But Colton Herta next on the list, obviously the runner-up in the standings last season. He did have 2 race wins. He did have 3 poles, 10 top 5s, 13 top 10s for a total of 513 points. Colton Herta, one of those guys that is always consistently right around the front as well. Obviously, we know that that Honda is fast, and it's one of the reasons why Colton Herta continues to be one of the major threats in this sport week in and week out.
Yeah, and so here's the thing with Herta, Rod. He is with Andretti Global, so another team that we hadn't talked about yet. Again, sort of on that second level, right? You've got Penske and Ganassi. Then on that next level, I would say McLaren and maybe he, I guess, sort of brings them up farther than they should be. But Andretti is kind of next there. He has run 99 races over his career, over 7 seasons, Rod. 7 different seasons in the IndyCar, not all of them full time, but 7 seasons. He's only 24 years old, which is just incredible. But this is a guy that was like the next coming, right? He was going to be an F1 driver and all this hype, all this stuff. It hasn't quite panned out now, and Adrian's bringing it up again. Super license points, right? Back to that. If you don't know, Andretti is, well, not necessarily Andretti. GM/Cadillac is expanding into to F1 next year. Going to add 2 new cars to the grid. Daniel Ricciardo's sort of been rumored as one of the guys. Maybe the other guy could be a Colton Herta type of driver. But he's plus 950, Rod. You get him a plus 950, and he just finished second place in the standings last season. Sometimes don't overthink this. And Herta's been one of those guys that over the years, his odds have been not as good, or the odds have been shorter than they should be because of all the hype, because of all the respect behind his name. And it was, he's this next best thing. And he just sort of never got it done. And you've made this point of multiple things. Consistency is the thing, right? And that's what's going to get him. And that's what has gotten him. But they've gotten better. They've started to clean it up. And each season, kind of the last couple of years, has gotten a little better. Did he have 2 wins last year? Is that right? Yeah. So 2 wins last season after he'd gone a season or 2 without winning any races. So sort of broke that streak, got off of it. Second place in the title standings, not that far behind Palou, right? Won the oval race to end the season there in Nashville. So an oval win, that's a huge step. For me, Rod, winning an oval race in IndyCar, there's enough of them, especially these days, that's a big thing you need to have in your game that you're able to do. Now he's shown he can do that. Herta, I think out of every driver on the board, is the guy that excites me the most because of the number you're getting at plus 950. Again, Alex Palou should excite you, obviously, but at 2-1, not as exciting as in plus 950 for the guy who just finished second, and he's still on the come up, right? He's only 24 years old. He's got more experience. They continue to sort of clean up the mistakes. And this is actually a lot like Tyler Reddick going into last season. And what we said to him was, we've seen the flashes, we've seen the talent, we know it's there, but the mistakes and they mess up and all these opportunities. And we've seen it begin to clean up now for Herta and for Andretti Global. And if they can just continue to do that, Herta could absolutely win a championship. I really love that. And Adrian as well here. First oval win too. Like I mentioned. So doors could come down now that he's shown he can win on those as well. And absolutely, I think just the confidence of winning an oval. Is he going to go out and win all the ovals next year? No, but should be competitive in most of them. Maybe more chances to win. Obviously, racking up points would be great there also. So I love Colton Herta plus 950.
Yeah, and this is the one where I think I probably should have put him as the cover guy, but I ended up picking the favorite. But no, listen, 6 podium finishes for him. I talked about how many top 5s he had, but he had 6 podium finishes in 17 races, which obviously means top 3 for those of you who aren't familiar. 35% of his finishes were on the podium, including the first race of the season in St. Petersburg, then Long Beach, a second place finish there. He had a second place finish at Laguna Seca. Obviously, he won in Toronto, and then he had a third place finish in Milwaukee, and then won at Nashville. But more impressive are the laps that he led over the course of the last probably 7 races out there. He led 86 at Iowa, right? And then 81 in Toronto. Down the stretch, 43 in Milwaukee, 24 in Nashville. I mean, this guy was dominant over the back part of the season. And I think if he continues that upward trend, we're looking at a very, very dominant team next year as well.
Yeah, like I said, he's the guy that definitely excites me the most because the number you're getting and because of the potential that is there. And I think we've just sort of scratched the surface. And so he's made starts over 7 seasons. This is going to be his 7th full-time season. He's 24, Rod, youngest winner in the history of IndyCar. But yeah, there's still, it's been sort of disappointing because you haven't seen it and you thought you would get it sooner, but we know that talent and that guy is in there. Maybe it's just it's taking him so long until he's 24 to bloom finally, but he's still young as hell and could get a lot done. And then Adrian with the point of the F1 team looming out there, and if he could come out and have a dominating season and win the IndyCar title, and he's already, Andretti is still tied into that team and everything. Boy, it could be, that could be really exciting.
Very much could be. All right, so we talked about Colton Herta 9-1, but the drop-off after that is Kyle Kirkwood, like I said, at 14-1, Marcus Ericsson at 16-1, Alexander Rossi at 20-1, Christian Lundgaard at 30-1, Felix Rosenqvist at 40-1, Santino Ferrucci at 40-1, Marcus Armstrong at 66-1. I almost don't want to mention anybody else because I'm not Graham Rahal, no. Delvin DeFrancesco, no. Rinus VeeKay, no. Like those names I'll leave off the board, but does anybody from that Kyle Kirkwood through Felix Rosenqvist or maybe even Santino Ferrucci or Marcus Armstrong make you stop for a second? Because I don't necessarily see any of that happening. You got to think about where these guys finished it, right? And I talked about consistency. Like Ferrucci only had Ferrucci only had 2 top 5 finishes. Rossi with 3, Lundgaard with 1, Rosenqvist with 2, VeeKay with 1, Armstrong with 4, Ericsson with 4. Like, that's not going to get it done. 8 top 10s for Ericsson, 8 for Armstrong, 7 for Rinus, 6 for. I mean, again, I'm reading off these numbers just to make a point that this is definitely not something that I'm entertaining past Colton Herta.
Yeah, so there's one guy I'll mention. I wouldn't go crazy betting it, and full disclosure, I'm a big Christian Lundgaard fan. But at 35-1 over on Caesars, Rod, he's moving from Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan over to McLaren, so he's going to be in much upgraded equipment from what we've seen. Now we saw he's only 23 years old, so another young guy. Obviously, Arrow McLaren has seen something in him, and they wanted to sign him. He's a guy that has been through the Alpine Academy in the Formula cars and everything before as well. So a lot of talent there. And we saw him get that win at Toronto a couple of seasons ago and have some pretty good runs over there. He's moving over to McLaren. Is he going to jump in and just suddenly start winning a bunch of races and win the title? Probably not, right? I think that would be a bit of a tall challenge, but you're putting him in a top tier or maybe second tier car in McLaren. He's a good, young, talented driver. And maybe they find something over there he could hit. 35-1. It might, again, if you're in this for the sweats like I am, it might get to the point where he's in the top 5 with 2-3 races left. And you're thinking, I got the guy at 35-1. Maybe he can pull off a miracle here and get it done. Maybe a little bit of fanboy in me. Maybe I'm not as much as a Kyle Kirkwood fan out there that's probably invested way too much money and brought his number way down farther than it should be. But I do think that there is something there to be said for Lundgaard. And at 35-1, I guess my point is, if you want a long shot to bet on, which I always do, that's the guy I would take because there's maybe something there.
Well, at least in the equipment, right? I mean, when you're talking about putting guys in really solid equipment, when we talk about it all the time in NASCAR and F1, it's just you put the guys, can they live up to the potential of the equipment, or can they elevate the equipment that they're in if they're a good driver in not so good equipment? But yeah, all right. I think that's about the last guy we feel comfortable talking about, right, in this IndyCar championship series. It's funny when we always come on, we're always like, okay, well, we can keep these ones short. We never keep them short because there's so much to talk
Rod
about.
said if it gets to 40 minutes on the clock, we need to start talking faster, and we're at 50. So
we are at 50. That's what happens when we get to talking racing. But that's okay, because I mean, listen, nobody suffers for it. We are always having a good time doing it, right?
That's what we're here for, Rod. So yeah, but yeah, it's a lot of fun talking IndyCar. I'm very excited for another season of Indy, and I think it's going to be a competitive season. You got Palou, a pretty heavy favorite, but as we talk through it, there's a lot of guys that could definitely challenge and make it a fun run for the money. So very excited for IndyCar this season. Probably be back with some Indy 500 talk. There's also race win totals. I mean, who knows? We might dig into that a little bit as the offseason continues, Rod. And yeah, as soon as we get off of this stream, we're going to be right back at it. We're going to start talking about driver changes over in the Cup Series, who's leaving, what team going to where, and what we sort of expect from them. So fun conversation to be had there. So if you're listening live, stay tuned, and we'll be back live again here shortly. And if you're listening on the podcast, this will be out on Saturday for you. So enjoy that. In the meantime, Rod, follow me over on the X at Husker_Zeeb. A lot of things over there. So go check them all out, because there's I'm constantly writing and putting stuff out. So make sure you check it all out. Appreciate it. And yeah, we'll see you guys again just a little bit here with some NASCAR talk.
Yes, sir. We are pulling a full Kyle R, so we're getting out of the seat of our IndyCar, and we're going in our chopper over to NASCAR and getting back on the track there. Follow me on Twitter at RJ Villagomez and on Blue Sky. Link in the bio, everything I got going on. Like Cody, it is a lot. If you love different types of sports, there's something for your appetite in there as well. But yeah, just follow me there and keep up with everything I got going on. All right, we'll see you guys soon, whenever you're listening. But until then, let's go racing and let it ride.